Yemo bibi akwaba na yemfombra yem platform we eso. Abusiafo Kwesi Pratt Junior veteran journalist na na yenim komodidi a eda abonti so ba na edi nkan ma mema Musah Danquah. Shout out to Musah Danquah. Ene die ni post na amfo. Nti na no ni statement now anase na no the comment now make you post no make you after say ene na o twe pepepe. Some kai dey see Dr. Alhaji Bawumia omuyi ni flag bearer ai ne nam so ma asofo bi no konhye to nso mu. Musah Danquah ye refer u post now oye no ana waka say asofo bi no ye lotto forecasters no ene won so de no a flop it. Inti say the ebedi ani. You see this say we determine pagin no sometimes very very critical, but that is not the issue nti am ho nti emfo nsi Baba Jamal and as you say oye amoka ni saying ayawaso owura na owuye na mpi na owuye nti say ono na NDC fo ayi no candidate nti yem congratulate no on that note. Na Kwesi Pratt Junior ache na adwen ediafa Dr. Alhaji Bawumia being the flag bearer of NPP 2028 obeko election. Sanso na wache na adwen the rename of Kotoka International Airport to Accra International Airport. Anyo no kwa Alan Solomon Owusu enso ache na adwen so. Yebeko nye kwa kuti sansem no na yekoba na kai na ebeto so. Meso document betum na wa like na wa share na foforo. Enye bi ahwe. On the more serious no mesremo adaroma like this video mame. Before say beko akọ ni like mame. Thank you. Enti yenko na yenko hwe ensema omodituga Pan African TV eso. Pan African TV Alhaji and Alhaji show sina nimbo ena odi sa adwumadi ho chiame yenko tie nsani bi.
But it is what it is the reason the United Party is available. You can be a potential parliamentary candidate for the PUP in Jojo. Think about it. To your cherished viewers, particularly those in Timpani, you have a huge support base in Timpani. That is very interesting, especially in Timpani Secondary School. The teachers are watching this one. They say I should inform you that they are watching you. Greetings to Temsec. They say they are called Temsec.
Good morning to them.
Good morning to your cherished viewers. And let me also use this opportunity. You know I'm in black. I express my deepest condolence to Mr. Edward Kwakudria. He was my junior at secondary school. Unfortunately, he has passed to glory, and the funeral is today. So after this show, I will go and also take part and pay my last respect. Sarah, I keep hearing people, they predicted right, they got the predictions right, as to what the NPP was going to do was a novelty, was something that was going to produce a different result. How many times did I not come here and tell you that nothing will stop Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia from winning the elections? He was going to win. I'm even surprised that he got 56%. It shows how weak he is even within the NPP, because the elections was rigged immediately. The National Council took that decision that it will be top down, and if anybody thinks that that decision was just an impulse one, then that person does not understand how the Machiavellians operate in the political setup or system. Every indication before election 2024 pointed to the fact that the NPP was going to lose the elections. So the establishment, and once again, people that still think that Akufo-Addo does not support Bawumia, I don't know where they are coming from. His main support and power still comes from the Akufo-Addo faction. So they planned ahead, and one of the ways or determinations they made was that if we lost the election and allowed polling station elections to take place before the flag bearership, it will work against Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. So immediately after the elections, they have to do that changes to make sure that they conduct a top-down approach. So right then they rigged the elections for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and I was very surprised. I don't know why my brother Sebe is not around. I told him countless occasions. He argued with me. He said, I said, look, Sebe, I was in this party before you, and I know what was going to happen. So I'm sure by now he will be eating humble pie. It was to be expected. But you see, the party, New Patriotic Party, and the elections that took place, I have said that right after the defeat, the report that was issued by the Ashanti Regional Committee that was set up to look into what really happened was also geared towards minimizing the influence of Kennedy Japan in their internal process, because in that report they attributed the entire defeat of election 2024 to Kennedy Japan by linking his utterances, outbursts, to why they lost the election, without necessarily pointing out that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia himself was the problem of the day. So clearly, the party was not ready to learn anything different. Beyond that report, you remember they embarked on a thank you tour. In the thank you tour, so now you and I know what happened. It was just a trading of insults amongst themselves. And that is one of the accusations that Kennedy Japan leveled against Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, that he had deliberately engaged young men and women in the party to be insulting him, just to also cause him to react to these insults. So it was building up until the election, the campaign proper, and the election. The campaign proper, I mean, some of the words that came out, if I'm to repeat them here, it will be so mind-boggling that within one family, first of all, they started by telling you and that among the NPP, all of them have sinned. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia had 16 sins, Kennedy had 10 sins, what's the name? Brian had 13 sins. Educhum was only passing a comment on Assassin Radio. They gave him 7 sins. That nearly cost his marriage. These people, Kennedy Japan was trying to dodge. They gave him 2. He's a lazy man. So sir, this is what. But if you go into the sins, having told us that all of them have sinned, what was then going to happen on the 31st of January 2026 was that they were going to give us the Holy Sinner. So that when they give us the Holy Sinner, the real Ghanaians will go and vote for that sinner in 2028 to take us to the promised land. I heard a young man say that they were not going to vote for Kennedy Japan, someone who needed injections before he could sit in cabinet. I heard Abonye say that the elephant was that sensible than Kennedy Japan. Can you imagine? One guy called Coca, he said that Kennedy Japan was mad. They had opened the score or something. So it was boiling up. But then Kennedy side also responded. I mean, I heard Owusu also articulate the fact that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia was suffering from autism. Hey! So between a mad person or autistic person, they were telling beyond the sinners that they have elevated the bar to be giving us their medical conditions. Madman and autistic person. So per the NPP's own rendition during this campaign, they are giving us an autistic person. For the Ghanaian to decide on that person come 2028. Sarah, if you are not worried about what took place last Saturday, and I don't know when you are going to be worried. When they were going around, the various candidates, do you remember the campaign messages that they were churning out? Let's even take the 2 leading candidates, Kennedy Japan and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. For Kennedy, he said he had money and he had open jobs, and so given the opportunity, he could create more jobs for the youth. That was the thrust of his campaign message. That was the case. That was the one. The second one was that he was a bold person. He was never going to concede to an election as early as possible. But what was Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's campaign message?
Ideas.
Hey! When I heard him say that, given the opportunity, he will be sending Christians to Israel to go and pray, and that was an opportunity for them to also renew their faith in Christ. I said, what are we discussing here? That in his mind, going or visiting Israel was the end of everyone's life cycle in religion. His next campaign message was that 10 persons from each constituency with the NPP were going to be offered opportunity to work in government. Is that not the case? Yeah. So clearly there wasn't any message. You go to Brian, ask for Brian, he was saying that, oh, this one was fighting that one was fighting. He was youthful, energetic, he could speak different language. Every guy started French, so I don't know how that one was going to solve our food problems. But at the end of the day, what actually determined who won was the fact that the album that was existing had already a lot of fake people in the album that align with the vision of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Number two, monetization of our body politic was the message and not what they were saying. Look, I heard a number of the delegates being interviewed live on various networks, and they were so bold to tell us that, look, we have come here, we are not ready to go and vote because 3 out of the 5 candidates have bought their monies. What are the two doing? You want to forget the money? They won't vote until they add up. And so now if anybody is convincing you that they actually paid 700 and 500 apiece, then you might be living in a fool's paradise. They paid each of them in excess of 2,000 cedis on that day. But in order to manage public perception of what they were doing, they needed to just come out with a 700, 500, 500. Granted, Chena, that they paid, Brian alone paid 700 cedis. Now, in total, you had about 211,849 delegates who were supposed to take part in that exercise. Now, close of day report suggests, or the votes that came out suggest that only 196,442 actually took part in the exercise. So that if all these people, and I've already told you that the amount that they gave them was in excess of 2,000, but let's even go with what the delegates themselves told us that these candidates paid. 196,442 times 700 for Brian alone. What it means is that on election day, Brian expended 137,509,400 cedis. That is for Brian. Remember, one of the reasons for which Adenimo withdrew from this race was the fact that the party called the New Patriotic Party was charging 4.6 million. When that issue was raised, Senna, countless of their communicators disputed that fact, that there was no way the NPP could charge 4.6 million. It turned out that indeed they charged 4.6 million. Add that to this one. In the days leading to the election, they went round the various constituencies. Any constituency they visited, they paid the delegates. So what it means is that this small internal contest, the New Patriotic Party candidates have expended more than 2 billion Ghana cedis. 2 billion Ghana cedis has been thrown away. A party that is unable to pay its staff at the headquarters. Remember that last year or so, the staff came out that they had not been paid almost 8 months after elections. And this is what members of the party are able to give out or dole out. But does it not prick your mind to link this to the levels of corruption that we experienced under the Nanado Bawumia administration? So you see, their actions and inactions last Saturday points to a fact and points to why this country was underdeveloped, because the monies are with them. And I'm very surprised what the GRA is doing with the benefit of these figures. By now the GRA must be going after them to find out how and where they got these monies. Last year on the 15th of September 2025, I together with the Bobokman and Musah Danquah, we petitioned the OSP. You know about that. When Dr. Bawumia had told the entire world that he single-handedly donated more than 300 brand new Nevada pickups. And when we put pen to paper and did the calculations, Dr. Bawumia, if he decided not to touch a cent of his salary, could not even purchase 10 of those pickups. The OSP have decided not to touch that matter. So, what won the day was money. And if you are a political party in opposition and you are building your party and you build it around money, and we all know that you are not a Father Christmas, and then the viewers or our listeners must understand that they are only baiting you to vote for them so that they can come and recoup these invested monies, which will deny you the much needed development, which will deny the youth of this country the much needed employment, because then the money that has to be invested in the economy would be stolen, would be looted by them to offset the amount of money they have expended during their internal primaries and also the main elections. Now, Senna, immediately, now before I even get to immediately after the elections, you go to the results, into the results, and it's very interesting. They have taken sides. Yagaba Kabore constituency, Yagaba. You saw that results? I've never seen so, apart from Eskin, General Eskin coming to tell us that he voted in a particular polling station, he got 0. Internal election, Yagaba Kabore, all of the rest had 0, which was the same thing in 2023, except Dr. Bawumia. Do you believe in that results? Do you honestly believe in it? Especially when we have been told by Nanka Bruce, a founding member of the New Patriotic Party, that he, Nanka Bruce, went to the national headquarters to go and cast his vote or ballot. When he went there, he, Nanka Bruce, as a founding member, his name was not part. Because in their mind, Nanka Bruce was going to vote against Dr. Bawumia, so they would take it out. The name out. But guess what? At the national headquarters itself, to further emphasize the fact that a lot of the founding fathers, the creme de la creme of the party members, do not believe in this process. They see it as a fraud process, as a fake process, as a process that nobody must rely on. 987 people registered to vote at the national headquarters of the party. 987 voters. Sarah, guess about close of voting? Only 481 members showed up to vote. And for the benefit of your education to your listeners, the national headquarters has voters ranging from past ministers of state, MPs, chief executives, national council members, national executive council members, and so on and so forth. Less than 50% of these members saw the importance of this activity, and rightly so, because they realized that the whole thing was rigged for one candidate. Now, Sarah, beyond that, utterances linking to even the polling station and election. Before I forget, remember the minority leader's place. Afenyo Markins. They voted en bloc for Kennedy Ohene Ejapo. And this is where I begin to link the problems that you must anticipate into the future. Sana, after the elections, I listened to 2 sets of interviews, and I don't know how they will be able to overcome these voices, these utterances by these 2 people, and what it means to the party. First was Sami Owusu on Asempa FM. Sami says, look, if Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia had won election 2024, he would have given positions to people who actually do not support him and do not believe in his cause. And it was therefore good that he lost, so that today that they have voted and seen the pattern of voting and know those that support him, in the future, all those that decided not to vote for him, count yourself out of his administration. In fact, I said 2 statements, but let me say 3 actually. When I heard this from Sami Owusu, I took it on a light note, or on a lighter note. On the platform, the very day they declared Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as the flag bearer elect, his acceptance speech, in closing his speech, he said, look, as for the MPs, he can't thank them more, and that those that supported him will forever remain in his heart, and he will treat them specially. What it means is that the likes of Stika, the MP at Tejuso, Ajensam, and Afenyo Markins, and Kwaku Kwatin and the rest that supported the bid of Kennedy Japan, and those that supported OPK, them that supported Brian, they have no future in this administration. But that didn't surprise you. It is the reason why already there are machinations, there are maneuvers to, as it were, try to get Afenyo Markins out of position, which will happen anyway, because you see, if Afenyo Markins is thinking anything different. Remember, it was Chairman Bonsu who was the majority leader. You remember that? And Chairman was replaced by Afenyo. We understand that it was a coup d'etat. Chairman only came out to say that he had resigned, not from his own volition, but if he had not done so, he would have been booted out of office. So he see his nemesis as coming from a coup d'etat that was led and actually executed by Afenyo Markins. Now, Chairman Bonsu was the coordinator for the Bawumia campaign. And with this in hindsight, you think you will live there. They are already preparing upon Nkrumah. So that is the first crack. It is the reason why when the parliamentary caucus or the minority in parliament visited Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, Afenyo was so clear in his mind that, look, first of all, as a minority party, we never had any strategy in parliament in 2025. Secondly, the cracks are too deep, and that going forward, there must not be any individual play, so that we can work together. And tell it, because he's afraid. But Afenyo is so much afraid. He knows what is about to happen to him. Afenyo cannot contain it. He knows they're going to boot him up. He said, look, Mr. Flagbearer, from today to go, in order to let you believe that we are serving you, and say, now listen to this portion very carefully. We vote for parliamentarians to go and serve our interests. Is that not the case? Now, Afenyo, because of the fear of losing his position, went and pledged the entire minority to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He said, look, doctor, the whole of 2025, we didn't have any strategy. Now that you are the anchor, you are the leader of the party, whatever you tell us, that is what we will do in parliament. Can you imagine? He has shown the whole minority to as it were Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to do whatever pleases him, and now all of them are going to, they are bowing like there is no tomorrow. Every morning they go and greet. Every morning from head to toe, everyone is going to the house to go and greet. But so now, did you listen to Kennedy Japan? When he met his supporters and few journalists, hey, things are in the pipeline. Oh, my goodness. First of all, it is so clear that Kennedy Japan does not have that much leverage on the supporters. His own supporters, they have a mind of their own and they think differently. The main reason why they supported Kennedy Japan was the fact that they believed the establishment had destroyed the NPP. Indeed, they have destroyed the NPP. That's why Professor Fibobati told you that the NPP had two set of membership. They had the fake ones and the virtual members. And that the Kennedy Japan supporters were fighting to make sure that the fake members were sacked from the party. So when he was addressing his supporters, whereas he was preaching unity, right there the supporters told him, hey my friend, if you are the one preaching your unity, just get away. We are done. We will take our destiny into our own. And from there, I have heard and watched a number of videos online with Kennedy Japan supporters, particularly the lady saying that, look, they are not going to work for the NPP, they are not going to join the NPP. I said, I have the data here from, maybe after that you can publish, from our website. I mean the United Party's website, www.unitedpartyghana.org. Since Saturday that they held that election, between Saturday 6 p.m. to Monday, we have gotten close to 3,000 members shifting to our party. And I'll show you the data. I don't lie with data. Because they believe that what was going on was all right. Beyond the supporters telling Kennedy Japan that, look, if you believe in your unity, go. We are finding our own levels. Kennedy Japan also gives us an indication that, look, something monumental could happen along the way. Something dangerous could happen along the way. Something catastrophic could happen along the way. Look, my supporters, why are you worrying yourself? We have 3 years to go. 3 years more to go. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. This is a loaded message that nobody can downplay it or will ever attempt to downplay it. Because see, anything can happen could mean that yes, the party can even decide to, as it were, take Mahmoud Bawumia or remove him as the flag bearer, because obviously, and by now they should know that since Saturday till date, the euphoria around town is that this is the worst decision. It's even worse than what they did in 2023 that the NPP are embarked on, settling on Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Look, sir, are you aware that there is an upcoming by-election in Ayawasu East? I hope you are aware of that.
For the NDC is doing primaries today.
The NDC is doing primaries today, right?
Yeah.
But are you aware that the NPP has already selected their candidate?
Yeah.
Baba Ali. How many times has the NPP itself, through their communicators or assigns, been able to even bold to project the Baba Ali? They voted for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia with a view that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is going to champion the vision of the party as well as that of Baba Ali in Ayawasu East. Remember, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia lives in Ayawasu East. And he has been telling us all this while that given the opportunity, he will win the Muslim vote. Thankfully, the Ayawasu East is a Muslim vote community. So they were expecting Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, after accepting to be the flag bearer of the party, the next Sunday he is in Ayawasu East, house to house, room to room, campaigning for Baba Ali. It's the what did Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia do? The next available flight is in the UK, chilling. The man is chilling. Because there is nothing that he could go and say on the street that people would take him serious. I can tell you that he is going to be a lame flag bearer. Is Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia going to campaign on the economy currently? Is he going to go to Ghanaians and talk to Ghanaians about exchange rate? When he had preached to us in opposition in 2013, 2014, 2015 and 16 that there was something called the Donjami exchange rate. You heard that? And that there was a correlation between interest rate, exchange rate and inflation, and that given the opportunity, he was going to turn around the economy of this country, stabilize the city. Indeed, when they came to power, he was bold to tell us that he had arrested the dollar and given the keys to the then IGP. What's the name of that IGP? I forgot it, but it will come. You understand? That he was boasting that he had given the keys to. Now today, if Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as a flag bearer decides to go out and campaign, how is he going to relate the current exchange rate to his regime? Now going around the country, the campaign was made relatively cheaper for him because the fuel that he used to cause Ghanaians to buy 23 cedi per liter, he was buying it at 10 cedi. How would he be able to go back to the people of this country as the flag bearer of the NPP to say that, look, the current fuel regime, ours was better than yours, and for that matter, look at me and vote. What about the NAPCO that he himself brought? NAPCO, Nation Builders Corp, that a party that had a policy called, a program called the One District, One Factory, they did not see the need to invest heavily in that policy to absorb most of the teeming youth to be employed, but they saw the need to give billions of Ghana cedis, in excess of 2 billion, to a program that they were only paying graduates only 700 cedis a month. How would Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia be able to go back to the people and tell them that, look, the policy NAPCO was better than what they are doing today? What about the debt to GDP ratio? What about corruption? How would Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia campaign on corruption when in fact his own office, they were identified as being complicit in the stealing of rice? You remember the rice saga? In fact, the office of the special prosecutor has captured it as one of the cases that they are investigating. When they stole more than 10 containers of rice and shared it to Muslims that were fasting.
Please kindly wrap up.
What about the national service that he himself came to tell us that he had brought an app called the Metric app that had the potential of, as it was, restricting registration of fake names into it, when later we were made to believe, and as is so, that 2.4 billion has been swindled under his watch. So clearly, the United Party couldn't have been happier with the choice of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, because as we speak now, the entire Kusasi zone, what it means is that election 2028, the United Party is poised to sweep the votes in the Kusasi zone. You know, this is not something you're going to run away from it. There's a rift between the Mampusis and Kusasis. So the NPP has deliberately said that, look, we don't want votes from one session. That's what it means. So we are happy, and I can say without any fear of contradiction that election 2028 will be one of the keenly contested elections between the United Party and any party that performs. Maybe the two of them will be playing relegation matches, but we are very much focused, and that expect surprises. I'll end it here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Solomon Owusu is Director of Communications for the United Party. I'll come.
Which won the 2020 elections is intact and is still that NPP and so on. But there has been a clear major event in the New Patriotic Party. You know, as we speak, one of the kingpins of the party, and it doesn't matter whether you agree with him or you dislike him and so on. In 1991-92, I was keenly aware of the role that Mr. Alan Martin played in establishing the New Patriotic Party. You understand? I'm aware of what he did to raise funds for the party. contributions that people like him made, even in shaping the philosophy of the party as well. So he's a real kingpin of the party. Now, if you consider the fact that he actually had run to be presidential candidate of the party and nearly pushed the elections into a second round, you cannot ignore him. Now, this figure and his supporters have left the NPP. They've not come back to the NPP. Okay. So they talk about unity of the party, they talk about the fact that the party is intact and so on. It's defective. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, you can talk about the unity of the party now, without Mr. Chairman Ting. But then we have to realize that a substantial part of the party is no longer with the party, and there are no indications that it's coming back to the party. So that's an important point. Now, for me, the other important point, and nobody can deny it, and nobody has attempted to deny it. If you look at the amount of money that was spent as incentive for delegates to show up and vote, I should tell you something. Indeed, if the New Patriotic Party had announced that anybody who wanted to vote should come and vote, you can imagine the number of NDC, CPP, PNC people who would have rushed to go and vote. Because voting was not for free. Yes, sir. Today, 400 cities to go and vote. Can you imagine the numbers of people who would have gone to vote? Okay, so the turnout is also not an indication of the unity of the party, the popularity of the party, and so on, because of the major incentive which was provided for people, to go and vote in the elections. Now let's put that aside. We are hearing from the contestants and their supporters that they are united behind one candidate. And sometimes they go to the extent of saying that he's the most formidable candidate, he has a vision, and so on.
Which ideas?
Now, if the person elected is that formidable, is visionary, knows the answers to the problems of this country and so on, why did they then contest him? You understand what I'm saying? A candidate has been elected. Those who contested him are now telling us that he's the best candidate to lead the party to the next election. Why did they contest him then? So they contested the best candidate. They didn't want the best candidate to become flag bearer. They didn't need a visionary to become flag bearer and so on. There's a problem with this posturing. You understand? There's a problem with this posturing. Now, the campaign messages are not hidden. They are not buried. They are available. If I take your phone now, and tap 1, 2, 3, everything will pop up. Everything will pop up. I don't want to repeat some of the things that they said, as Solomon has done. Solomon has gone to the extent of repeating some of the things that they said. But some of the things that they said are really frightening. If what they said were true about the person who has been elected as flag bearer of the party, and they said, you understand, why would anybody vote for him to become president of any country, not just Ghana, any country? So that problem is there. And they have a lot to explain. Those who contested Dr. Bawumia, those who described him as visionless, those who said that his academic qualifications could not translate into competence and so on, should come and tell us why today they are asking us to vote for the same person who is visionless, whose academic qualifications mean nothing, and so on. They need to do a lot more convincing. You understand? So that is also an issue that we can put aside for now. Now, it's important also to look at the figures, the results, the actual results. And if you look at the actual results, they are not comforting for the NPP and those in the NPP who want to win election 2028. You see, within the New Patriotic Party, based on the elections, it can't be argued that Dr. Bawumia's popularity has come down. In the last primary, he got around 61%. In this primary, he's getting almost 57%. Somebody must be able to explain this. How come that apparently his popularity within the New Patriotic Party is dropping? Now, in the last election, when he got 61%, I heard some of the pundits actually argue that going into an election, a national election with 61% of your own home-based support is terrible and may be an indication that he could not win the elections. Now, when the election results came, it turned out to be the most disastrous, the third most disastrous election result in the history of the Danquah-Busia tradition. Today, it is not 61%, it's come down to less than 57%. What does that tell us about the possibility, of victory in 2028? Now, there's something else. I mean, now, there's no doubt at all about the fact that the most credible polling organization in Ghana today is Global Info Analytics. Nobody doubts that. Okay. But beyond almost accurately predicting the outcome of the NPP primaries, they also did some pairing which was interesting. They paired Dr. Bawumia against all possible or potential candidates of the National Democratic Congress for the 2020 elections. 2028 election. Thank you. Now, it turned out that in that pairing, Mr. Julius Debra, current Chief of Staff, was the worst performing possible candidate of the National Democratic Congress for 2028. But even him beat Dr. Bawumia in the first round, 2028. These votes were around 50.2%. You understand? That should be worrying for the New Patriotic Party if what Global Info Analytics saw, and this poll was conducted in December, you understand, only 2 months ago. I mean, when he was pitched against people like Haruna Idrisu, Atu Forsen, and others, his performance was terrible. Okay. So again, it shows that there is something to worry about. On this score, we can say that, look, we still have 3 more years to go. And 3 years in political life is a very long time, and things can change. Yes, it is possible. Things can change. It is possible for what is today seen as the achievements of the Mahama administration to actually, go away. I mean, for example, we are now talking about the rate of inflation being 3.8. Nobody knows what the rate of inflation would be in 2028. Okay? Today, we are talking about the value of the cedi hovering around 10.2%, 10.2 cedis to a dollar and so on. Fine. I'm not sure, I don't know whether by 2028 that situation will still persist. Okay? Today we are talking about debt to GDP ratio having improved significantly. Today we are talking about how the country's debt stock has been substantially reduced. Today we are talking about how the energy sector debt has been drastically reduced and so on. All of these are facts, and all of these are pluses for the Mahama administration. But the critical question is that will these indicators, will these figures remain the same in 2028? If they should change, what would the implications be for the 2028 elections? As we speak now, 2028, there are so many imponderable factors, you understand, that nobody can accurately predict the result of 2028. But common sense will teach us something interesting. And I'm talking about common sense, ordinary, pure common sense. Common sense would indicate that for the people of Ghana to change their mind and vote for the new patriotic party, the indicators, economic indicators, the social indicators and so on, ought to be worse in 2028 than what they were in 2024 for that shift to occur. So if in 2024 the cedi is exchanging at 12.5 to a dollar, it would not be beneficial to the new patriotic party. If in 2024 the rate of inflation will be 7%, it can still not be beneficial for the new patriotic party and so on. The NDC must necessarily perform. NDC's performance must be worse than the NPP performance in 2024 for that flip, to occur. And sitting here, Senna, I don't know how that is going to happen. I don't know how that is going to happen. I mean, for any government's performance to be worse than the performance indicators in 2024, it will take some doing. You understand? It will take really some serious doing for us to arrive there. So I'm not particularly optimistic about the chances of the new patriotic party. Now, you listen to them, all of them, including my brother in the studio, you listen to all of them, and what they say is that, if only they could unite. I don't think that election results spring from internal unity. It doesn't. I mean, to think that way is to underestimate a people. Elections substantially are about bread and butter issues, concrete issues which have relevance to the welfare of the people. So when we're going to elections, we're actually talking about access to potable water. We are talking about food, access to better nutrition and so on. We are talking about national infrastructure, how people move around, and so on. It's part of the equation. We are talking about improvement in access and quality of education. They're even talking about sports and recreation and how all of this impacts on people. So you can unite all you want. If you are unable to convince the population that your assumption of office will lead to significant improvement in people's access to education and the quality of education, you are joking. Your unity doesn't mean anything. You can unite all you want. If you are not able to put forward a plan which suggests the national infrastructure will be substantially improved, you are joking. You can unite all you want if you are unable to convince the people of Ghana that food will be available and will be available at prices and conditions which will enable people's access to food to improve. You are joking. You understand? And to be honest with you, Senna, so far, I haven't heard anything that suggests that these conditions would improve. And to be honest with you, very honest with you, the only candidate in that contest who spent considerable time talking about how to improve agriculture, how to improve the employment situation and so on was Kennedy Agyapong. Kennedy Agyapong was the only one. You understand? I mean, his whole campaign was based on that. But he lost. Okay? He lost. And it's interesting. Now, since the elections, something else has happened in the New Patriotic Party. And last Thursday, I was reading the newspapers and I found a syndicated article, newspaper article, syndicated. And why I say that is syndicated, that the same article, word for word, was published in about 5, 6, 7 newspapers. You understand? Word for word. No, nothing changed. The same article in about 5, 6 newspapers. And this article was actually saying that, look, the party has to choose Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh as the running mate. Okay? And that if the party chose any other running mate, it would be a disaster. I hope some of you read that article. That article was offensive in the extreme. Because at the time when you're talking about party unity and the need for everybody, including contestants who lost, to rally around the candidate, that article was denigrating all other candidates and saying that they are unfit to be running mates. Now, if you run this kind of syndicated articles in the newspapers, how do you then expect the losing candidates to rally around when you are preaching and telling everybody that they are unfit, they cannot be running mates? They contested for flag bearership. They lost. And they are not qualified to be running mates. They are unfit to be running mates and so on. And you expect them to rally around. I mean, that's very strange. And that article was very, very damaging. You know. In any case, we've had apologies from Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia about the fact that a lot of mistakes were made in the campaign and also in government when he remained vice president or when he was vice president. Which were the errors which was made in the campaign? Did that include the selection of a running mate? And if that included, and I'm not saying it did include, I'm just asking, if it included the selection of a running mate, are they going to repeat that same mistake? I mean, I don't know. But these are the issues, these are the questions that need, to be answered now. Then I also see the effort to fan ethnic sentiments. It started all over again. You understand? And I'm worried about it. And I must confess that, to be honest, it is not only within the NPP that sentiments are being fanned as an election gimmick or election strategy. In the NDC is happening in the NDC too. But I see them in the New Patriotic Party, and I am worried. I'm asking whether really the change that we are being promised by Bawumia is true or not. There's so much emphasis on choosing an Ashanti as running mate, with the argument that Ashanti continues to be the stronghold of the party, and that if the running mate is not chosen from Ashanti, then the party will be in crisis and so on. This is ethnic campaigning. This is ethnic campaigning, campaigning on the basis of ethnicity, and I'm frightened, okay? Now, while saying this, I must confess that during the week there were also similar articles which appear to have been planted in the newspapers also by elements from the National Democratic Congress. And these included articles which were campaigning for Mr. Kojo Bunsu, currently ambassador to China. And these articles emphasize the fact that he's an Ashanti. You understand? So those who planted that article and those who planted the article about Napo and so on, they are the same. Same backward thinking and so on. Now, I'm worried about the fact that ethnicity is on the rise, you know, in our political campaigning and so on. Then there's a trend which must also be very worrying for us. Maybe not that worrying, but a trend that is noticeable. And this trend was noticeable in the 2024 campaign. The trend to distance Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia from Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and what appeared to be the failings of his administration. It hasn't gone away. It is still there. It is still there. And I've heard his supporters, or some of his supporters, say that now the apron strings of Akufo-Addo have been cut, and cut for good, and that he will be his own man, and so on. I'm not so sure that that is a sensible way of campaigning. Because to have this as a campaign message would suggest very strongly that as vice president, he had very little influence. He could not in any way contribute to shaping policy within his own government. And you see, if as vice president he couldn't contribute to shaping policy within his own government, within cabinet and so on, how then can we expect him to help shape policy merely because, you know, he's now become the flag bearer and so on? Because when he won, he had to go to Nana Akufo-Addo to pay obedience, obeisance, and so on. He had to go to President Kufuor and so on, which suggests that these people still have some influence within the party, and he cannot, you know, as it were, ignore them. But then there's something else. You all remember my very good friend, Dr. Martin Opoku Prempeh's claim, which virtually said that Bawumia was the most sensible person in the last cabinet. Maybe he was. I wasn't there. I didn't take part in the cabinet meetings. I wouldn't know. Maybe we should believe Napo. Now, if you have to believe Napo, the question that arises is that if at cabinet meetings he demonstrated that he was the most sensible person, that was even far more sensible than the president himself, how come that this argument did not reflect in policy? Because you could only see his brilliance and so on if indeed he was able to convince his colleagues. He was able to do proper analysis of the issues that came before cabinet then and so on. But truth is that in spite of the fact that he was the most sensible person in cabinet as claimed by Napo, he himself said that he made no impact. So what was the use of his sense? Sense that made no impact in cabinet? I don't know. Musah, 2028 is approaching. I'm a Ghanaian. What I want is that by the end of the 2028 December 7th election, there should be no reports of injuries and death at polling stations. By the end of the elections in December 2028, what I want to see is that we have elected a government that is focused on delivering on the aspirations of the Ghanaian people. We have elected a government that has plans to ensure that the resources of Ghana are owned by Ghanaians and exploited for the benefit of the Ghanaian people. What I want to see then is that we will elect a government who did not campaign on the basis of ethnicity, who did not tell us that Christians should vote for me because I'm a Christian, or that I was a Boy Scout, or Boys Brigade member and so on. What I want to see is a government which truly unites all of us. What I want to see is that we have a government which is not pandering, and this is a very serious issue for me, that we have a government which is not pandering to any one particular traditional authority against others. What I want to see is that we have elected a government which, whilst paying respect to our traditions and culture and so on, understands that Ghana is a democratic constitutional republic in which there cannot be any kingdoms. You understand what I'm saying? Must have finished.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Because we'll turn to one issue that has to do with naming, especially the Kotoka International, what is currently known as the Kotoka International Airport. A few comments before we get there, though.
And in that case, all that the relief, all that the NPP was seeking was to bar the government from using state funds to celebrate a cool occasion. I was in Nigeria before. They went to court. They said, under no circumstance must the state eulogize coup. And this was the New Patriotic Party versus not an individual, the entire party versus the Attorney General. It was a landmark case. The NPP won 5-4. And this is the reason why 31st December is no longer celebrated with public plans. So they should have been the first people to be calling for the removal of Kotoka from the airport. You understand? As a country, you must have what we call national agenda. What is our national agenda? When the entire world is celebrating Kwame Nkrumah, as a matter of fact, anybody that stands anywhere and says that Kwame Nkrumah didn't do things, he didn't get certain things wrong, I will be the first person to question the person's integrity. How can a human being be in this world and say, I did certain things and I didn't get it wrong? He got a lot of things wrong. But as a country, you must have what you call a national agenda. Your hero who is being celebrated everywhere. When I went to Washington, I was in the Union Building, I was reading about Kwame. I looked at all the people, the monuments that were there. I felt proud as a Ghanaian. You know, I'm not coming from the CPP background, but I'm so happy that at least the name of Ghana is being represented by Kwame Nkrumah. So if you're beyond all the arguments, I've read what Professor Azari has written. He's thinking on the theoretical point of view. But if as a country you want to develop along agenda, national agenda, then we are blowing hot and cold. That in one breath, Ghana sees Kwame Nkrumah as a hero. Now the first point of call, the name that you see is Kotoka. So anybody who doesn't know the history of Kotoka, googles quickly, and what comes out or pops out is that Kotoka was the one that removed Kwame Nkrumah. So in one breath you are celebrating Kwame Nkrumah, in another breath you are celebrating the person that removed Kwame Nkrumah. How does this work out? Why must this even be a debate? What monumental achievement would you attribute to Kotoka, apart from the fact that he overthrew Kwame Nkrumah? And whether or not that overthrow led Ghana to any promised land. We have had a lot of coup d'etats since then. NLC, SMC, and so on. It's the reason we are retarded in our development. Interestingly, people who ought to know, I've seen them begin to post the sectorial performances of Kwame Nkrumah in 66, justifying that because the economy, granted the economy wasn't doing well, they didn't cause or call for a coup d'etat. And these are coming from intellectuals. Then they raise the issue of preventive detection act, PDA. Sarah, every act is passed by parliament. Is that the case? So they create the impression that though Kwame Nkrumah single-handedly brought a law to be dealing with people that really wanted to harm him. If you are a president and people are attempting your life and you decide to put in place, go to India and go and check the National Security Act. Today, in modern day, go and check how different is that National Security Act of India from that PDA. Now, when you box them, they didn't move, elevate the discussion to what about the Avoidance Discrimination Act? And that Kwame Nkrumah was creating one party state. And I said, what? So they don't even know what the Avoidance Discrimination Act came to do. How can you form a political party on ethnic lines or religious lines, Muslim Association, Gassifi Bope, Anglo Youth, Trans-Togoland, and you think that this is a political party? No, because he was afraid of elections. If you read, Kwame Nkrumah was in prison when he won the Odododio election. He won the 54 election. So in terms of winning elections, that was also somebody who was afraid of elections. You get my point? Everybody is serious. And I find that's why they are even going to remove him. But sometimes I get surprised that he introduces the ethnic element. And there is another person at the National Development Planning Commission, Professor something, who has also written something. I can't imagine that he is calling on all others around the globe to fight against the removal of Kotoka. Where are we going to get into with this? Where is the country going with this sort of shallow thinking? We cannot entertain that, because names have a meaning. Look, I agree with Accra entirely. You know why? Because you see, you can name an airport after a place. It gives the place recognition. Why is Cairo Airport not there? If you go to Addis Ababa, it's not Bole Airport. Bole is the name of the district. Can still promote Accra. And by the way, it used to be the original name. Before it was named Kotoka International Airport, was not Accra International Airport. So you must stop this business. Look, it's the only reason why my brothers in the NPP are not coming forth with the idea of UPCP, because now when they go and mention UP, it is our party. It advantages us. So they even go there to even promote us. By the way, let me use this opportunity to address a fundamental flaw with my brother Sebe. Look, the United Party is not always praising government. Let me tell you something. And see, you are not following well. When you are an opposition party, you are supposed to behave responsibly. You don't just criticize an administration for criticizing. In fact, between the NPP and the United Party, we have, as it were, criticized this government more than them. Look, I remember the first time they mentioned the name of Buzitano as the one in charge of 24-hour economy. I was the first person to criticize the appointment. But when there is not, if inflation is 3.8 today, and I know that you left it at 23%, on what basis would I go and criticize? You yourself, you ended by praising the government, that all the indicators are good. So are you doing the bidding of the president, the government?
I'm sure you need to give praise where it's due.
Now, so what different is what you have been doing from what I've been doing? Because you couldn't have done otherwise. That when the indicators are so good, better comparative to what you left, on what basis would I criticize? On what basis would I criticize John Mahama that the CD has stabilized, when I know the importance of the stabilization of the currency? Your own people, they are unable to defend. What they say is that, why is it that the Bank of Ghana has invested close to 10 billion into the economy to stabilize? I say, hey, where are these people coming from? So you are a government, when you know that Article 183 or so tells the guy and mandates the Bank of Ghana to, as it were, ensure the stability of the currency. And that when you have money sitting there, and you know that if intervene in the market, the city will wobble. You will sit down for the city to wobble to wipe away people's working capital and say you were government. No way. But what we from the United Party will not do is that we will criticize blindly. That's what we will do. Look, as a government, it is not that the Auditor General's report is going to come. Is that not the case? Yeah. So if they were strategic enough, and no wonder Afenyo last time told all of us that the 2025, the whole of 2025, they never had any strategy in Parliament. And when he said, I said, we were just doing anything anyhow. And now that Dr. Mahmoud Wawia has come, they hope that you give them directions. You understand? Because as opposition, they think that the work of opposition is always to oppose. No.
Okay.
You understand? So the name is long overdue. They must clear the Kotoka and immediately replace it with Accra International Airport, and we move on.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just a few, something small.
Yes.
He mentioned something, and I hear a lot of people making those mistakes. When you want to mention the performance in terms of inflation of a particular era, you actually have to mention the lowest and then the peak. So you shouldn't say they ended at 23%. You say that the lowest inflation in their era was probably 7.8, and then the highest, the peak of it.
I should have gone for the 23 and then the 54. I mean, but
I'm just saying that is how.
He is rather thank you. This Constance who says ratings are done. Please, Rawlings has nothing to his name except the Rawlings Park. The park was named after Rawlings by Makola traders because Makola #1 was demolished by Rawlings. It's not constitutional. The NPP man should know this. This one also says, if indeed Ghanaians, says Kotoka shouldn't be demonized as if he did bad by staging the coup against Nkrumah. Kotoka was deceived by the elements of the UP political tradition then, not necessarily. 1 year after the shameful coup, Kotoka saw the deceit and wanted Nkrumah back, but he was killed to stop his dream of bringing Nkrumah back Nkrumah. So let's sympathize with Kotoka as he was being used by the elements of the UP political. I don't know a lot about that. So, Mr. Pratt, over to you.
Well, I mean, there's so little time that it's impossible to do a comprehensive analysis of this matter. So I'll start by stating that I am 500% in favor of changing the name from Kotoka International Airport to Accra International Airport. 500% in favor of that decision. What I reject is the ethnic analysis, is the base, childish, stupid ethnic analysis which has found its way into this debate. So those who use ethnic analysis to justify the change have a problem. And those who use ethnic analysis to attack the change also have a problem. We are building one Ghana. That was the national goal from independence to today. We are building one Ghana. Every Ghanaian national is entitled to the resources in Accra and the resources in Paga equally. The people of Paga are not entitled to the resources of Paga exclusively. In much the same way that the people of Ashanti are not entitled to the resources of Ashanti exclusively. We are building one Ghana. That is the national objective. Look, it's important, as Solomon Owusu said, to recognize the NPP's own recent history. Yes, the NPP went to court and got a court decision saying that all coup d'etats should not be celebrated. That's a decision which the NPP instigated, that all coup d'etats It was not just the decision. The NPP went ahead and changed Sankara Circle to Obechebi Lante Circle. So the NPP went ahead and took practical action to change the names of structures and places named after coup plotters and persons who executed coups. That is why today we have Akwaje Park instead of Sankara, Akwaje Interchange instead of Sankara Interchange. So if the NPP is to be consistent, it cannot be opposed to this proposal from the Mahama administration. Consistency requires that it toes the line. Now, there is something else which is very significant, and my brother has also mentioned it, that Nkrumah was not an angel. You know, the Preventive Detention Act was whatever. Fortunately, my brother, you are a lawyer. Show me one country, and I mean one country in the world, who does not have a Preventive Detention Act today. Show me one country in the world. If you look at our constitution today, under certain circumstances, citizens' rights are suspended. Go and read the provisions on the Declaration of Declaration of War and so on. Under some circumstances, the Patriot Act in the United States of America, is it not a Preventive Detention Act? The Patriot Act. Britain has the same law. Germany has the same law. So to pretend that only the Nkrumah government instituted this law is dishonest. Because every government in the world has one form of Preventive Detention Act or the other. And so I was right. It is under the Patriot Act. There are people who are arrested all over the world without charge and trial and dumped at the Guantanamo Bay in Cuba by the United States of America. So let's be fair to the facts. In any case, what was the substantial difference between the Preventive Detention Act and the Protective Custody Law? What was the difference? This was the law under which all CPP activists, including pregnant women, were arrested and detained without charge or trial. So please, let's be fair to the facts. Preventive Detention Act cannot be put on the neck of the Convention People's Party and the CPP alone. Every government has had a Preventive Detention Act one way or the other. You see, we will have enough time to discuss these matters. On Ghana's Day of Shame, the 24th of February, there will be a public forum on these matters. And that public forum will be transmitted live on Pan-African television. So those who have time, please listen. It will help. And those who can afford it, they should come to the headquarters of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, where these issues will be debated in detail by Ghanaians and non-Ghanaians together. People from the United States of America, so we'll all be there to discuss these matters in detail. But you see, February 24th, 1966 coup was not an ordinary coup d'etat. It was not an ordinary coup d'etat. In fact, it's a very, very special coup d'etat. What went into it has not gone into any other coup d'etat in Ghana. Why? The evidence, and I'm talking about the evidence, is clear that this was a coup d'etat which was sponsored, planned, and executed by the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America. The evidence is in the declassified documents of the CIA. The evidence is in the testimony of Philip Agee, who was one of the most prominent agents of the CIA. The evidence it's in other testimonies. Philip Aggie and John Stockwell and so on. They've all written extensively about this. So let's get out of our illiteracy and read. The evidence is in a book titled The Great Deception, How Nkrumah Was Overthrown, which is the publication of the declassified documents of the CIA with comments. It's available at the Freedom Bookshop. You can get it right now. You understand? The evidence is in a book authored by J.D. Mahoney, the son of the U.S. ambassador at the time, using his father's documents and so on. He's provided the evidence to show that that coup was planned, instigated, supported, sponsored by the Central Intelligence Agency of the USA. So the evidence points to the fact that the 1966 coup was a direct foreign attack on national sovereignty. So those who are praising Kotoka for organizing the coup, they don't know the history. Kotoka was a small tool in the hands of the CIA for organizing the coup. And indeed, the historical evidence again is on YouTube. I interviewed Mr. A.K. Deku, who was one of the conspirators, Commissioner of Police, CID, and then Nkrumah, who became a Commissioner of the National Liberation Council. I interviewed him a few weeks before he died. A.K. Deku was chairman of the Council of Elders of the New Patriotic Party. And I interviewed him for a program on TV3 called Hot Issues. The whole program as we speak is on YouTube. Go there and listen to A.K. Deku. I asked A.K. Deku to evaluate Nkrumah. A.K. Deku said that Nkrumah is the best president that Africa has produced. Not Ghana, Africa has produced. I asked him, why then did you join the conspiracy to overthrow him? He said to protect his life. And that if he had opted out of the conspiracy, he would have been killed. So he went along knowing that what he was doing was wrong. Okay? Put that aside. The key conspirator was not Kotoka. It was not a FIFA. The key conspirator for the 1966 coup was a Major Kwesi, who was resident at the 37 military hospital. It was in his house that the coup was plotted. But somehow the CIA decided not to play him up. So his name doesn't appear anywhere. The key conspirator was a Major Kwesi. The coup was plotted in his house at the 37 military hospital. You understand? So we have to understand these things. Now, I pity my nephew, Afenyo Makin. He's my nephew. You know, I really pity him. I mean, he's increasingly becoming pedestrian in his analysis. And I pity him. I actually feel sad for him. This, his drive into ethnicity. Where is the basis? That if you touch Kotoka, you have touched Evers. It's unbelievably childish. Now, let me explain something to you. The Convention People's Party, one of its strongholds was the Volta region. Okay? When the coup occurred, what Kotoka and his henchmen did to Voltarians is unbelievable. Reverend Goka, he was a minister in the Nkrumah government. He's one of those who was bundled and thrown into prison. Are you saying that Reverend Goka was not an Ewe or from the Volta region? He suffered at the hands of Kotoka. Not just that. One of the most prominent advocates of the CPP in the Volta region was in Qatar. His name was called Fiawo. His son became one of the big journalists in this country, working for the Ghanaian Times and so on. Let them tell you their story about how they were cheated after the 1966 coup, and come and tell me that Voltarians will go and struggle because Kotoka's name is being removed. Why? One of the consequences of the 1966 coup was the removal of people from the Volta region and others from high offices throughout the country, leading to the filing of the case which became known as Apollo 568, the leader, the person who mobilized and filed the case was called Salah. He was from the Volta region. To stop this nonsense. Do you know people in the Volta region who suffered? Check. The facts are there. The history is there. People in the Volta region suffered. They really were punished for supporting Nkrumah. So to think that people of the Volta region will rise because Kotoka's name is being removed, we are dreaming, we are joking, we are ignorant. You don't know the history. As if you know the history, you would not put forward this baseless, childish argument. You understand? Now, there's so much to say, but we can't say it all.
Thank you.
But listen, my brother, and listen very carefully. I am all for naming the airport Accra International Airport. Because we are reverting to the status quo ante. Little controversy, no problem. If you come and argue that it should be named Kwame Nkrumah Airport, becomes a problem. Everybody is talking, you know, making unfounded statements and allegations and so on. Accra International Airport, finish. And the reason why it should be named Accra International Airport is not because the airport is in Accra. Because if you accept the argument that you should name it Accra International Airport because the airport is in Accra, by extension of logic, it will lead to total chaos. Okay? It will mean, for example, that the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Kumasi should be renamed Kumasi University. By logical extension. And would that make sense? We are trying to build one Ghana. One Ghana is what we are trying to build. And we should stop this tribalism, this ethnicity, foolish ethnicity and so on, and focus attention on how to build this country and to take it forward. Take the next steps forward and so on. Stop this. I am completely disgusted. These people, some of these people, and then it's important for us also to note that the NPP is not united on this matter.
Yes, it's true.
So if we have to condemn, let's condemn the backward people in the NPP who are coming up with ethnic analysis and so on. You cannot rope them with people like Kojo Nkrumah who supports this change. Kojo Nkrumah says the change is fine. So Kojo Nkrumah and Afena Makin are different. They have different positions on this matter. So don't rope the whole of the NPP into this and condemn the NPP. Let's fish out the individuals who are backward, who don't understand our history and deal with them. You understand? Yeah. That's my position. Okay. You see, there's so much to say. So much to say. So much to say. You travel around the world. Travel around the world. There's nowhere in the world that I have been that there's no monument honoring Nkrumah. You go to Guinea. I mean, perhaps Guinea has the biggest statue of Nkrumah anywhere in the world. You go to Mali. Look, I went to Kenya 30 years ago. The major street in Kenya is named after Nkrumah. You go to South Africa, where? You go to Cuba. Nkrumah's statue has been erected in Havana. What's wrong with us?
You come to Ghana,
what is wrong with us?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyway, that concludes our show for today. Just on the issue of the
Musah Danquah kakra na yento aso. Onu anka se mo hu waba Facebook. Our church nsem bebre, but as a nyanyai. We were more be am on trumpet o. Sa akode ni nasem. Me am bo me trumpet. Onu abo na trumpet. The post no, but and then you will be so. Ewo constituency ho. Mega me to many anje ho. And I know say we NDC ni now property ni ye. Pa sadie we. You people shouldn't tolerate it because it was bebra when you be guasi. etwaso bebre be hamu muhu ye Baba Jamal ne camp na omo che TV enaba to na mi kan yo omo che TV 32 inches 44 inches na omo san jisika na omo san tokusua ya no a omo che kusua ya no a onze ye wonwa na mitie ni interview bi oyeye o kire mu a ono oyade a otaye Christmas, Easter and other this thing oche oche sika pa balade ba ko pe na eba ma adwimu bisa me say say that so Christmas and Easter because you can't tell me it's a delegate ni don mo koto aba nko a sa dan particular one na was oche TV it tells you something but they didn't come in for results ni ntudwa ayawa so East Parliamentary Primaries NDC for ena mukoye into here picture no ena ede ni mu no okay so that is it. First candidate Muhammad Ranin onya 88 be rather na wasere onya 88. Second candidate Amina Adam onya 399 and Baba Jamal no or ballot paper no so as third position. Baba Jamal Muhammad Ahmed 431. It will difference na just 12 anamebwa 12 inches television so no kwache wow enyezo na we rather na wasiri and fourth candidate and all ballot paper no so Dr. Yakubu Azindo 45 and when enya one adewanye campaign Najib Muhammad enya one I mean so no wanye campaign enti in the main distance no Baba Jamal a okoche TV kosia ya noa ene sebisika edima delegates delegate nso sebi o ma adwinu ye o mo ha eno mo koto abane de ma no enti sisi wa wini but asua de wo sa de wi mu anye se bia me be kana ma ye but mo me nhwa ade sa de wo ya Baba Jamal ye no ye President John Mahama NDC NEC the National Executive Council mo friend na mo nka bibi nchire no de oye no me enkenye machine but that day no enemi hu video bi anam kofo ni kita TV no edi firi ho no makoto aba wi no kita TV na ebo ni nchense na Ghana since when ye to oto aba unya TV ene zen ko bi ento TV e twen December 7th na nka yakoto oto arwa ju TV no sa suban na nye NPP for ye condemn omo in 2023 omo primaries omo ye for presidential muhu de course 2026 we muhu 31st muhu NDC for muhu say yewura Dr. Alhaji Bomia Kennedy Japan ene ne nkofo yanti webia okurum ha yanti so bi ko che we sika de omo che sika de omo che 700 cedis ne 500 cedis bi ni 10,000 bi nkofo che but who do any hu even when you see did you see television ni kusu amano o men kan ko mfa kire ho ade e course ne na ye ni guasem NPP fo NDC fo yi ye ka kire mo ma bi nsi bio we ye mo amu nke na elections primaries o ade na ukoche kusu ya no kusu ya no na usu delegate ti bon course wa kwaji kusu ya no me backing vocalist mamu mfi no ai asem ye ne sire baton de sisi obi a wo follow bi ani se me mega me means enzem bi se ba sia na me kan but no ma ye serious enya Baba Jamal wo Yamal ambassador Ghana to Nigeria anya ni bira enka wo nsan meka o magi sa parliamentary seat no na oni se wo wini nti wasnya kotokosia na wano na waye dudu agusu na ade ama delegate no enye fine in fact antwa yie May Charles McCarthy the reaction on this issue. And we are Charles McCarthy, Baba Jamal if you kruma because on one got a pet o candidate and was na TV and a camera capture. I'm hoping say NDC MPP candidate you better take that seat from MDC. I'm telling you because I indiscipline. It is indiscipline for you to do that. Not NDC necking, so indiscipline for you to watch that man, full grown ass. I in a second Japan, full grown ass man. Okoche kusia yanwa. And you're fine. And you're fine. Moses and free home. Maba power na nenche sa mu be ama sisi kani na mudi atoto nyema na elections. Mudi akoche o. Mu yes Ghana for be dwa papa. I'm telling you. MPP for ye be the same thing my year. Then 2023 mega. But now platform we are so ha mega TV ha. E blast omo. Enti ade na NDC for the aba me betina no mka say am good. Me so e ba say me hypocrite. And I know it's a lot of people are mohwe me. Majority of you mu NDC for you will get pissed off when you see me speaking like this and when you're watching me speaking like this. But on the more serious note, you kind of crash it. You baba Jamal and wanya de. We are more ambassadorial deal and as ambassadorial position e Nigeria. We fi the one ma ba so be contest. Na ba yan kabra bokoe. Wasan akoto kusia ya no. Asanya akoto TV dia mama ma delegate achinchimo mo adwena je. What is that? Huh? Anyway, they see yeah train the bekoso on the day no MPP for edi omu be wuram no na ye hu enti o see a 32-inch television and kusia ni mako were enough to win the election. When you pakro yes supposed to MPP ni tata hwe eno yes supposed omo anso eno kwar se kusia ya no ani mako ena okoche Owusu afiri ye nyaako eno yes supposed to or ye Kennedy Japan nipa. Anyway, I mean for see my crown. Bye bye. Why? Because seminar how you can choose not to watch me again because yen can of fancy and easy for no more no more yadi. Baba Jama wanya de crowd. The penasem. What's it then? What's it then? I was near the why.